When I founded this company 10 years ago, there was a natural tie-in between products that were made 100, 500, 2,000 years ago and environmental responsibility. There was a time when people produced products out of regional materials, and they tried to produce things that would not toxify their environment. They were responsible that way. And it was a natural process. And I found that if you follow the natural process that was used 500 or 1,000 years ago, it will automatically become an environmentally responsible process. I was an interior designer for many years. I had great clients. And we would buy the hardware in Europe. I had one company in particular that I did a lot of business with, which is in Italy, that has sold hardware for several hundred years. And we would also buy from antique stores and auction houses. And I sort of became known after a while for great antique or vintage window treatments. Over time, I realized that there was a market for people who wanted some incredible window treatment involving antique Italian hardware or old French wood or bronze doré, but that they didn't want to wait 6 months. They didn't want to wait for an interior designer to, find the product or produce the product. And we realized that people wanted to be able to walk into a store and buy something that was very, very good quality. Not just expensive, but the same kind of quality that was really good 100 years ago or 500 years ago or even 2,000 years ago.
What Whitney has done is she's retained the grassroots, the roots of where she comes from. And that's apparent in the products that she develops. They all have the heritage. In other words, they're the kind of things that you can walk through famous old homes and you feel comfortable with. So she considers that very highly. And most of those products, by the way, came from sources that were natural to the people at that time. So it's only natural that we go back in time and recreate those same sources in a present-day environmental concept.
I've been collecting hardware for many years. I've been collecting antiques for many years. And the hardware, for example, that I may find in Florence or Paris or London or Venice or Rome will be wonderful, either hand-carved wood pieces, and I'll bring these pieces back and cast them in cast stone, or else in Paris I may find bronze doré pieces, bring them back to the US and cast them in aluminum. We also will find great hand-forged iron pieces in Rome. I'll bring those pieces back, and we have our own forge works, which, let me just explain that forging is a very hard job, and I really admire the man or the men who do our forging. We do it all in the US. It's not done in a third world country. We have great working conditions for these guys, but they love it. It's an art form. It's a lost art form. And to take a wonderful piece of antique iron hardware from Rome and try to learn to forge that again from scratch, it's very hard to do. And we'll work with the piece itself and copy it and eventually have our own forgers be able to produce the exact same thing, the exact same way that it was produced 400 or 500 years ago. Our steel rods are made out of recycled steel, a minimum of 65% recycled steel. We have a wonderful graphic of the Lindisfarne Gospel from 798 AD that shows 1,400 years ago our twisted rod, tube bracket, and curtain rings. So these are obviously not trend products. We're very interested in historical accuracy. Our aluminum is somewhere between 60 and mostly 100% post-consumer waste recycled steel. Our bamboo is the most environmentally responsible product we can find. It's the fastest growing renewable resource on the planet. And it has no paints, lacquers, or varnishes on it. It's strictly finished with fire, earth, and water in a 3,000-year-old Chinese technique that is very environmentally responsible. We're one of the only or few companies that use reforested and recycled wood that is finger jointed back together again to make wood rods. A lot of companies want to use virgin wood. They use wood from the rainforests. And when we decided that we were going to use recycled It was a huge issue for us in order to find a company that would produce a recycled wood rod. It was more expensive in the beginning. It cost us an extra $100,000 or $200,000 a year. It now costs us less. It's still a great product, an even better quality product, and yet we're not using any wood that's not reforested or not recycled. VOCs are volatile organic compounds. They're in paints, almost all paints. When we started painting our products, we wanted to use only low VOC paints and finishes. And we had a beautiful paint, which was an antique gold paint that had been on the market actually for probably 50 or 60 years. We asked them to make a lower VOC paint for us. They did, and made a formula that was specifically just for our use. With time, they sent us a letter that said thank you for encouraging us to make a product that was lower VOC. And then also with time, they sent me a note and called me and spoke to me and said that they had discovered when they offered this lower VOC product to all of their other paint customers that they did not have a use for the higher VOC product any longer. First started producing our draperies, we wanted to produce silks and cottons and hemps. And I was very surprised when I started researching cotton. We knew that whatever we made, we wanted to make environmentally responsibly. And cotton horrified me because it was one of the most toxic textiles that you could buy. We started producing organic cotton. Not just organic cotton draperies, but we also started producing organic cotton lining to line our silk draperies. We thought it was very, very important that if you make a product that all the components of it are environmentally responsible. There was a lot of resistance in the beginning with the people that we worked with about formaldehyde. It's my understanding that almost all the silk produced has formaldehyde sizing. In particular, draperies in your home, if they're produced out of silk, they'll have formaldehyde sizing. The funniest thing happened in that we discovered that there was a great sizing that was indigenous in India that is made out of the soap nut, which is ground up and then used for about 2,000 years to add texture to textiles. So that was a great change, especially when you consider that you might put 4 or 6 drapery panels in your bedroom, and then there's off gases from this formaldehyde that you're breathing for 7 or 8 hours a night.